Heroes and Villains, Part 1, Rena's Titan, Chapters 18 through 22. Chapter 18, A1 Liquor, 21st Street, present day. "This milk is expired," said a bald-headed customer from the back of the liquor store. He looked over the rows of other expired merchandise at the two clerks who stood behind the counter, each of them with their arms crossed over their chest and their eyes glued to the TV. On the screen, the Iron Champion was being attacked by the merciless villain as the cameraman filming ran by in one parked car to another. "Hello," said the bald man, annoyed. Ignored again, he sighed and put the milk back. From the front entrance, the door chime went off as the door opened. A woman in her late 20s, with golden hair and face which personified the words "Go away," walked in and strolled directly for the 2 pots of old coffee brewing in the far side of the store just past the counter. The bald man gave her a smile and nod, but she did not acknowledge him. On TV, the view switches to a helicopter's view of the battle. "Look at the Kia Soul," said the reporter. "Its windows are completely blown out. Its front end is torn apart. This was done by the first of 2 villains. The one that did this had just come out of the bank and fought it out with the Iron Champion. We're showing you this to illustrate the magnitude of the type of battle that rages on since about 11:30 this morning in downtown Titan. Now we see the second villain, continuing to fight with the Iron Champion, really landing some devastating blows against this hero, who by all accounts is the most powerful hero in the city of Titan. It looks like the first villain is attempting to leave the scene almost nonchalantly. He's swiping what looks like large, elastic-like tentacles at police who have formed a perimeter around the battle. Those officers are taking cover now, along with pedestrians who had been lining up at an ATM machine where all of this got started." "Can you believe that?" said the bald man who now stood directly behind the cash register. One of the clerks, an older gentleman with a thick black mustache, just turned to the bald man, shook his head, giving him a quick up and down look, then turned back to the TV. The other clerk was too astonished to take his eyes off the TV. "I mean, the Iron Champion, right?" he said, looking over at the woman who was sipping her coffee quietly and looking through her phone. "Hero of California, savior of America, protector of Titan." He turned back to the clerks. "I'll bet every hero in the area is going to be at that fight soon, backing him up." The bald man slipped his right hand under his shirt and pulled out a hidden pistol that was secured in the waistband of his pants. He pointed at the 2 clerks who hadn't noticed they were now part of their own news story. After a few moments, he grew impatient and tapped the barrel of his gun down the wood storefront counter beside a container of male enhancement pills and green bananas. The mustached clerk turned first, looked at the gun, and like the character in a play who's been given a familiar cue from the director, half-heartedly started raising his hands. After realizing that his co-worker and brother had not yet noticed the situation he was in, he grunted sharply. His brother looked at him with a "what are you doing" face, turned to look at the bald man, then joined the show with his arms slowly rising as well. "That's it. You've got it. You know, your milk is expired," said the bald man. "Now give me all the money in the register, all your Marlboro Reds, and a couple of those bottles of Jack Daniels, in a bag. And make it quick." The clerks immediately began doing as they're told. They moved quickly to end the situation, but not fast enough for the bald man. He looked at the door and back at the clerks, growing more and more agitated as time went by. When they grabbed the liquor, they double-bagged the plastic bags as they do instinctively any time someone buys a hefty amount of anything to keep it from falling through the bottom. "Are you guys messing with me? Hurry the fuck up!" Turning now to see that the blonde woman was now just watching with the manner of someone waiting for the bus, he shifted the gun to point at her. "Oh, you think this is cute, sweetheart," he said. "Your wallet, your jewelry, anything you got, on the counter. Nice and slow." The woman took a sip of her coffee, but did not move. "What, you think this is a joke?" he said. Sweat was now forming on his bald head. "You do it now, or I'll put 2 bullets in your brain. You hear me? Now. Right now." "Just take it and go," said one of the clerks. All the robbers' demands had been packaged in black plastic bags and were sitting on the counter. He looked over at them, then back at the girl. "I decide when I'm done. Not you, not him, and not her. Me." And at this bit and just then, everything in the convenience store started to blur. It was as if everyone was vibrating so fast that all the objects and people in the store were in different places all at the same time. The 3 men looked around confused, but the woman's eyes were focused and sharp. The bald man looked at her. He could see the confidence in her eyes. He knew that somehow she was responsible. He struggled to move his arm. Extending it was trying to move through thick tar. Eventually, he managed to point it at her and pull the trigger. The bullet left the chamber and spun through the air like a football just before reaching the upper right corner of the woman's chest. Her eyes pulsed with a nuclear white light, and the bullet stopped in midair, but continued to spin. From the side of the bullet, a layer of the lead casing began to come off like an apple in a skinning machine, and as each layer came loose, it broke apart into tiny cubes, which in turn became even smaller cubes, until what remained of the bullet was not visible by the human eye. "What are you?" asked the bald man. His voice dragged like an audio recording being played at the quarter of normal speed. The woman didn't react or respond. She simply walked through the distortions in the universe that she was creating until she reached the man. She raised her hand, and with a single finger, she touched the center of his forehead. His eyes immediately sunk into his head, and his mouth turned into a grimace of agony. His body, slow at first, then exponentially growing in speed, began to be sucked into the point in his own forehead where he had been touched. He didn't make a sound. There wasn't enough time. Before he could register what was happening to him, his whole hot body had been sucked into space so small that it couldn't exist in this universe. Not even a speck of dust remained from where the man had been standing. Slowly, the store and its belongings stopped blurring and returned to normal. It was as if the bald man had never been there. The woman, who had never put down her coffee, walked over to the counter and carefully ripped open one of the bags. From it, she pulled out a pack of cigarettes and a small amount of cash. She put on her shirt held by the other fabric of her bra. "Now, this is one of those moments of alarm we were just talking about," said the reporter of the TV. "One of the heroes that just arrived is confronting the villain who continues to attack the Iron Champion." The two clerks looked back at the TV for a moment, just in time to see the hero charge the villain and be blown back by a single punch. They then turned back to the store to see that the front door was swinging shut and the woman was gone. From a hallway behind the counter, smoke began to steadily bloom outwards. The two clerks looked at each other, then ran back. The DVR that stores the video surveillance footage has melted itself and is smoking profusely. Chapter 20. Helix Automated Medical Call Center, Boise, Idaho. The name tag on the side of the cubicle read Jordan Burnett, but his friends called him MJ. This became apparent when you saw the pictures that covered his cubicle wall. While most people had pictures of their friends and family, MJ had pictures of famed shooting guard for the Chicago Bulls, Michael Jordan. "Thank you for calling Helix. May I have your name, please?" he said into his headset. "Sure, no problem. Let me get that authorized." His computer lit up with information. On one side was a hospital and their request. On the other, it was a patient's insurance information. Mostly it was hospitals who called them. They would ask for authorization for patients to use some sort of piece of automated device in the hospital. "Thank you for calling Helix. May I have your name, please?" MJ paused and listened. He began to shake his head even before the caller finished. "I'm sorry, you'd have to call your insurance company about that. Your plan doesn't cover the use of that equipment." Sometimes patients would call themselves to ask why they weren't allowed being treated, but occasionally it was neither of those. "Thank you for calling Helix. May I have your name, please?" "Hello?" MJ's computer started to glitch. Windows were opening and closing faster than he could see what they were. Usernames and passwords were being entered to access different parts of the network. Requests were being sent out to autonomous ambulance units. Said MJ. He tapped his computer and moved his mouse. Nothing was happening. "Nina, a little help?" Nina, his supervisor, walked out from her own cubicle and stood over his shoulder watching. "It shouldn't be doing that," she said. "I know." "What happened?" "I don't know," he said. "I just got a call and it started going crazy." "Did you call tech support?" "I can't do anything," he said, tapping at the computer again. "I can't make calls. I can't even shut down." "It shouldn't be doing that." He looked at her and just hunched his shoulders. "Unplug it," she said. MJ got down under his desk and looked for the power cord for his computer. Finding it among several others, he made sure the cord he was holding was plugged only into his computer, and when he was satisfied, he unplugged it. Getting back up, he was relieved when the screen was blank. "That looked like some kind of cyber attack," said his supervisor. "Do you see how it was sending out requests?" "Yeah, that was pretty bad." "Go ahead and leave it off, and go sit somewhere else until I can have someone from tech support get back up here and take a look at it." "All right," he said. The call center was huge. The cubicles were in groups of fours, and they filled a warehouse-sized space. MJ took a few of his belongings, including a signed picture of Michael Jordan he got where the man himself visited Boise State a few years before, and moved to an empty computer a few rows over. He turned on the computer, signed in, and immediately it went crazy. It picked up right where the previous computer had left off. "Nina!" Chapter 20. Autonomous Ambulance, V Street. The ambulance had turned the corner that would lead to the UC Titan Medical Center. Inside, Rena was unconscious but otherwise unhurt. The vehicle had no human staff on board, but important decisions about patient healthcare were left to on-call dispatchers. At the front, in place of a steering wheel, a control panel lit up. The display read a word that was blinking in bright red: "Override." The ambulance praised the past the hospital driveway and kept going. Above, it turned off its lights and slowed its speed to normal. Inside, the arms came alive, and a needle was first retrieved, loaded, then prepared for injection. The needle slid easily into the girl's arm on the opposite side as the needle that sedated her. She immediately began to stir. The ambulance pulled into a parking garage and went up each level until it made it to a section taped off as under construction. He drove through the tape, and around the corner where on the ground the Iron Champion was lying in a pile of battle damage. Upon arriving, the ambulance opened up like a flower, and the arms gently pulled out Rena and laid her on the ground beside the champion. It then pulled itself back together and drove off. The champion looked down at the girl, his faceplate badly damaged, and watched her as she woke up in his hands. He held her leg. He began to blink. Rena rubbed her face. The drugs had blurred her vision badly, but as things began to clear, she saw him. Her immediate reaction was to scoot away, with only one leg that was near impossible. She looked back down, forgetting her leg was gone. The Iron Champion held up the leg, looked at it, then gently laid it down beside the girl. She paused for a moment before reaching out for it, still a little afraid of what was happening. "Go on," he said in his deep mechanical voice. She grabbed the leg and inspected it. It had changed size since the last time she had worn it. It was smaller now, no longer adjusted to her body. She pushed the node into place. The leg immediately took a familiar size and shape. It glowed blue, and Rena immediately felt her body grew weaker as it seemed to suck the energy out of her. She closed her eyes and held her breath until the feeling started to subside. Then she breathed deeply. When she opened her eyes again, she noticed that the Iron Champion had slumped down onto the ground. "Oh my God," she said. "No, no!" She got up, unsure of what to do at first. She tried to sit him up, but he was near impossible now. Pure dead weight. Gradually, he seemed to come back online and help her as she tried to help him. Together, they got him sitting up, and then a loud snapping sound came from the suit. Rena backed away as the headplate came up like the doors of a DeLorean. Next, the chest opened to either side. The legs collapsed into the fish-like scales of metal, then pulled themselves up into the suit's torso. Soon enough of the suit was gone that all that left was a man in his late 40s with graying hair who looked absolutely emaciated. Rena used both hands to hold in a gasp as she saw who the Iron Champion really was. "What happened to you?" she asked. The Iron Champion groaned as she pulled himself out of what was left of the suit. "It's this damned armor," he said. His voice was gruff and dismissive, not only of Rena, but of himself. The voice of a man who's been through too damn much and was tired of all of it. "It's like a parasite. It draws my body's energy." He paused, and once his arm was free, he pointed at her leg. "Kind of like that leg of yours does." Rena looked down at her leg, and then back up at the ironless champion. He coughed, and a trickle of blood poured from his nose. It traced his lip and flowed into his mouth. This seemed to make him cough more. It was a wet, raspy cough that seemed to never end. "Are you dying?" she asked. He pulled up his shirt and blew his nose on it. It left a moist red stain. "Huh? Dying? Well, I hope not," he said. "It's bad, I know. It probably looks a lot worse than it is, but I just need a little less rest to recover." "Let me ask you something, girl. How long have you been wearing that leg?" "I don't know," she said. "Since my accident?" 9 years, he asked. 10, maybe? "Around 10, she said. "Yeah." "I thought that leg looked familiar," he said. "I'm glad it went to someone who would put it to good use." "What do you mean?" said Rena. "That's my leg," he said. "Well, it's technically your leg now, but I made it. It was one of the early prototypes for the suit." "What?" She half gasped. "I told a friend of mine that I needed to test this leg on somebody who would be strong enough to withstand the enormous resource drain that the leg imposes. Basically, that would mean a child. Only someone so young had the strength required. He searched for weeks before he found you. Even then, I didn't think you were the right one. Too damn thin." "Glad to see that's changed," he said, pointing at Rena's stomach. "That leg can get pretty hungry, but at the time you were just a twig. But obviously, I was wrong about you." "You have no idea what this leg put me through. If you think it was easy..." "Of course I don't think it was easy, and frankly," he said, "I don't care. That kind of power comes at a cost. But I saw the way you attacked that squid thing. I mean, I've never heard of you, but I'm guessing you do some hero work on the side." Rena shook her head. Christian frowned. He looked at Rena with disdain like a disappointed father. "You mean to tell me that you have a thing for a leg, and you've been doing what? Just walking around?" "I just wanted a normal life," she shouted. "That pretty much went out the window when you lost the real leg. Didn't get it? Give me a break and cry me a river. I gave you unlimited power, and you wasted on a little girl's dream of a perfect life. Well, guess what? Life isn't perfect. It's a pretty crappy planet, and losing your leg is just one bad thing, in a parade of bad things that are going to happen to you. Rena began to cry then, and all the pain that she had constantly carried around broke the dam, and Rena couldn't hold it in. She thought back to her childhood, at the pain that she had. Everything that had happened was just part of some experiment. Everything she went through was just research. I hate you, she said finally. Well, sweetheart, that's going to be a problem, he said, because this suit is dying, and right now there's only one person in the area who can help. You see, just like your leg, the suit needs energy to survive. It's badly damaged now, but with just a little bit of that energy, it can start to repair itself. I've given it all it can, but now I need you. I'm done being your guinea pig, she said. You can take your leg back. I don't want it anymore. Rita pulled the leg back off herself and let it fall to the side. Good, he said. I needed that off of you, but I need it charged first, champion, he said to the suit. Locate new host. A red beam swept the entire parking lot in a flat spinning burst. Host located, said the suit. Acquire, he said. With that, the suit completely pulled itself from him, reassembled, and began approaching Rena, who wide-eyed cowered away as best she could. Leg, said Christian. The leg used its thruster to scoot over the Christian. He grabbed it and transformed around his body, covering his arms and chest like a mini version of the Iron Champion suit. I'd say I'm sorry about this, but people like you have always just been some meat for the machine. Besides, it's the only way. The leg then pulled Christian up and out of the parking structure. As he flew away, the suit turned to watch him go, then returned its attention back to Rena. Please don't, she said. Chapter 21, from the documentary, A Girl Who Was a Super. Kristen, sister, is sitting on a couch facing the camera. Growing up with Opal and Titan, she was pretty much normal until she was like 16. I was living with our dad in Hawaii, and our mom would Facebook me and say like, hey, Opal's a little different, and she has these abilities. And I was like, nobody else in our family was born super. It was one of those things that you heard about on the internet, but nobody really knew was super. But I came to Titan to visit her a year later, and it was, well, it was crazy. Officer Henry Browning is sitting at the desk facing the camera. Things were pretty much average in Titan back then. I was a police officer walking the beat, and it was my job to stop criminals. And these were normal criminals, not like now. Just people like you and me who had lost their way. That girl, Christian, was the start of it in Titan. When she walked into that burning building and came out with survivors, it changed everything. Kristen, sister, is sitting on a couch facing the camera. That was when I started to believe. I mean, I and my brothers weren't super, but Opal could just do things. But she wasn't like a superhero. She didn't wear a costume or anything like that. She was just my sister. A photo of Opal dressed up as a Wonder Woman for Halloween. Etta, Mom, is sitting at the kitchen table facing the camera. We were worried. Nobody knew what was going on with those people. Nobody knew the side effects, so of course I took her to the doctor. We must have gone through 100 specialists. We only went to the TV shows to pay for it because none of them was covered by my ex-husband's insurance. Finally, one of them said that Opal's cells had mutated severely and that the same abilities that kept her from being hurt caused tumors to grow inside her body. I would have given anything to share Opal's powers at that moment because of the pain I felt from hearing those words. I still haven't recovered from that. He said that you have to take her to the hospice care right away because there's nothing that can be done for her. She immediately ran away from that place and hid out with their friends and their families, telling them that I had given up on her and that I wanted her to die, and just terrible, horrible things. And after I called the cops, I think most of them believed her. Went around doing that for years. Kristen, sister, is sitting on a couch facing the camera. When Opal turned 25, she went through like an emo or goth phase. She started wearing a lot of blacks. It was black makeup, black clothes, fishnet stockings. Anything black, basically. That's when she first started going around calling herself the Black Mistress. Chapter 22. Cathedral of the Blessed Mary. Alley parking. 10 years ago. This is your car? Asked Rena. Sister Alice smiled knowingly and unlocked the door of her 1986 Pontiac Parisienne station wagon and opened the door for your young guest. Rena climbed inside. The outside was in decent condition, but the inside was immaculate. And like most old cars, the driving controls had been replaced by self-driving controls that were more modern and digital. After a moment, Alice slid in behind where the wheel once was and sat down. The phone in Rena's pocket vibrated loudly in the quiet cab of the station wagon. If you don't answer that, said Alice, I will. Rena casually pulled the phone out of her pocket and hung it lazily between her thumb and finger towards the sister. Alice grabbed the phone, looked at it for a moment, then answered. Hello? The sister's face had started the call with pleasant amusement, but a concerned shadow quickly crept on her face. No, said Alice. But she's here with me. Which hospital? Rena, who had been inspecting every nook and cranny of the car, turned sharply at Alice and listened. We'll be right there. Alice hung up the phone and started the car, then keyed in a destination. Now traveling to Titan General Hospital, said the control panel. The car moved without hesitation. Alice handed the phone to Rena. I think you should just listen to your messages, she said. Who was that? Asked Rena. What's going on? Why are we just listen to your messages? Rena looked at the nun with terrified eyes, then slowly took the phone and dialed. You have 17 unheard messages, said the phone on speaker. Message 1. You know what, Rena? Said her mom. This is bullcrap. I work every day, to make sure we have a house to live in, food to eat, things that you don't give a damn about, with the way you keep your room, and now I have time to go to your school because you're not there. Call me now. To delete this, Rena pressed the button for the next message. Message 2. I'm not freaking kidding, Rena. You better be at school right now or calling me. There isn't a third option. I'd better hear from you right now. Right now. To delete message 3. There is just silence. 2. Message 4. Am I a bad mom? Is that what this is? Do I not do enough for you kids? I've done my best to provide for you, to guide you, to give you everything you ever needed, every opportunity, but in the end, you're all just like your father. You just can't wait to stab me in the back. You know, you're always telling me about your stepsister, and how she mistreats you, but I'm not blind. I see your attitude around the house. I know there's plenty of blame to go around for everything. I just don't care anymore. I don't care. You just do what you want. Do what you want me. I'm still going to your school to look like a complete jackass in front of your teachers while trying to explain to them why my daughter isn't in class today. It's not like you can go to a regular high school. Continuation school? You only have to be there a couple times a week. You know, when I was your age, I was going to school every day. Every damn day. And every night, I came home with 6-7 subjects worth of homework. Do you think I got to just lay in bed and play with my phone? No. I had to go to work to support my family, just like what I'm doing now, so that my parents could afford to eat. Why do you think I work 2 jobs, Rena? So you don't have to even work 1. You know what? You're just a selfish little brat. You're worthless. No, you're less than worthless. If you were worthless, at least then I wouldn't have to spend so much money every month to support you. You know? Sometimes I hope you never come home. To delete this message, press the number 1. To skip it, Rena, I'm so sorry, said Sister Alice. Rena just shrugged and looked down at the phone. Her finger stroked the phone nervously as the car traveled through downtown Titan. The evening sky reflected red on the phone screen. Keep going, Rena, said Alice. Why bother? But before the sister could respond, Rena inhaled deeply from her nose to keep from crying and skipped the message. Hello? Rena. The male voice was unfamiliar but strong and authoritative. This is the Officer Slater of the California Highway Patrol. I'm calling you because this phone was sent at the scene of an accident. You were the most recent contact. This might be your mother, or your sister, or something. Anyway, your mother has been involved in a car accident. She's been taken to Titan General. If you'd call me back at the CHP hotline using reference number 564-8564, you get straight to me. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Hugh. I'm a nurse here at Titan General. The CHP officer who arrived with the ambulance gave me this number. He thought you might be a good contact for Miss Kemp. Well, Irene Kemp is in critical condition at this time. She lost a lot of blood, and she might be on her way to surgery. Honestly, right now, it's too soon to tell. If you could give us a call here at Titan General, ask for nurses station 21B. I'll be here until 10 o'clock. Thank you. Alright, that was Heroes and Villains, Part 1, chapters 18 through 22. Thank you.